Good morning. We got a great show today, lots of information, very interesting information. We're going to get into a little bit of the science of fats today. And that's something that a lot of people are curious about because they go to the store, they don't know what kinds of oils to buy to cook things in. They don't know what kinds of oils are healthy, what kinds aren't healthy. And it's a very complex subject, but we're going to get into it on a level that's, not shallow, not super deep, but right kind of toward the middle in order for everyone to understand it. Okay, now there's a couple things that I want to talk about today just before we get started. We want to emphasize, of course, that on Tuesday evening at the Welcome to Health Center, we actually have a seminar that explains a lot about how to lose your own fat, how to burn that fat as energy. And it's something that is very, very important because burning your own fat is a very, very good process in order to not just thin down, but actually to get healthier. Because the more fat you carry, the more likely you are to be insulin resistant, which means that you are going to be likely to have type 2 diabetes. So come out to the seminar and we will actually help you discover how, in many cases, you can actually overcome the type 2 diabetes you already have. And this is something that, knowledge is power when it comes to health. There's no question about it. The more knowledge you have, the more you can tune your diet, tune your activities, tune your exercise, etc., so that you can actually get back into a state of what's called balance. Scientifically, it's called homeostasis, where everything is, you don't wander too far one direction or the other. You stay right in there in the sweet spot of health. So I would encourage you to get out to that seminar. We are right off of 23rd Avenue or Avenue of the Cities in Moline. We're on 53rd Street. So when you're heading toward East Moline from Moline on Avenue of the Cities, you just turn right and there we are in the first block on your left hand. If you're coming from East Moline to Moline, you turn left and there we are on the left side of the street, on the left side of 53rd Street. So, it's easy to find. We've got room for you. Give us a call at 309-764-2115 and let us know you're coming, or just show up on Tuesday evening. And it's something that we have on a weekly basis. Every once in a while, we won't have it if I'm out of town for a seminar, but most of the time you're safe in just coming. However, if you want to really be safe, give us a call first. Now, one of the things I want to emphasize is that you can get these shows that we do on the radio here online. You can go to the welcometohealth.com website and you can get the shows. You can also learn a lot about the ideal protein diet protocol that we perform in our clinic. It's a coached protocol, so you are always with somebody else at your elbow helping you understand what to do, a place where you can ask questions, something that you can make sure that you are accountable to somebody. And for most people, that's something that really is helpful. Okay, so what about fats? What do we know about them? Well, the standard American diet, the SAD diet, the SAD diet, the standard American diet is out of balance. It's got so many processed foods, and most processed foods use vegetable oils as a very cheap and convenient ingredient. They use sugar even more, and the human body is just not made for the processed foods. It's made for natural foods that are packed with nutrition. So much nutrition in just regular foods like lettuce and broccoli and cauliflower and kale, and you just go on and on. Good grass-fed beef, all of these different foods, fish from the ocean, all of these different foods are so packed with nutrition that we don't even know all the nutrition they contain. We don't even know all of the chemistry that they contain that our ancestors had available to them on a daily basis. One of the things that we say often on the program is that our ancestors had better nutrition by accident than we have on purpose, because we have foods that are so over-processed that we actually need to add back nutrients in order to make them even roughly acceptable. Fortified with this, fortified with that. What that means is that they knocked the nutrition out of those foods so completely that they've got to put a few back just to be moderately respectable. But can they put them all back? Not even close. Most of the micronutrients, most of the micronutrient minerals, the vitamins, the different plant sterols and all those things are gone. And yet we need those too. If you are on a diet that just has processed foods, forget it. You are not getting a healthy diet, okay? But today we're going to be focusing on fats. And one of the things about fats is that most of our processed foods, as well as most of the foods we like to eat, are high in a fat called omega-6. Now, we're going to contrast two different fats, omega-6 with omega-3. And many of you already know that omega-3 fats are the healthy, unsaturated fats. Omega-6 are less healthy saturated fats, and unsaturated fats, because it's not that omega-6 are unhealthy per se. They're only unhealthy because of the ratios that we eat them, okay? We, in the standard American diet, the SAD diet, we actually have a ratio of 20 to 1. 20 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. That's way out of balance. We get there by eating the seed nuts oils only, and by eating the corn-fed beef. The corn-fed beef is not a healthy beef. The animals aren't healthy. They have to keep those animals actually alive by giving them massive quantities of antibiotics. They're in these huge feedlots with no grass available, just mud and very unhealthy, lots of sickness in the animals, and they keep them alive with antibiotics, basically. And the corn-fed beef, which, by the way, tastes pretty good, I agree, but the corn-fed beef has a horrible 20 to 1 imbalance of the unsaturated omega-6 fatty acids, or fats. Now, how do we solve that problem? Well, it's possible to get grass-fed beef, for example. It's more expensive, but believe me, it's worth it, because if you want your body to be built like a sick cow, then you eat the omega-6 fats. You eat the 20 to 1 ratio. If you want your body to be built like a healthy cow, a healthy bull, somebody, virulent and productive, etc., you eat the meats that have a higher omega-3 value. And one of the things that was just revolutionary way back when these kinds of issues were first getting going is that the omega-3 and the omega-6s, when it comes to meat production, it's a fairly simple thing to understand. If you have a grass-fed beef, which, by the way, is eating the kind of food that beef are meant to eat. They're ruminants. They eat the grass, they chew it, they swallow it, it goes into their first stomach, they belch it back up again, and they re-chew it and re-chew it. It goes back in again, and then they belch it back up, they re-chew it, then they finally swallow it, and then the digestion is completed. But they chew their cud. That's the term that was always used way back in the day. And that's what they do. They stand there, they chew all day long. We don't digest grass very well. It's far too fibrous. The nutrients are very difficult for us to extract. We don't have 3 stomachs. We don't belch things up and start chewing them again, but, hopefully. But the cows do, and that's the way they get the nutrition out of this grass. And they fundamentally just eat all day long. That's their job. That's what they do, okay? Now, if you're feeding them grass, they have a great omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in their own healthful constitution, but also in their meat. And you can get a 4 to 1, 1 to 1 ratio with grass-fed beef fairly easily. Okay, and that's very close to ideal. 1 to 1, omega-6 to omega-3 is exactly what you're trying to go for, trying to approximate. But the grass-fed beef is a good source of omega-3 fats. On the other hand, if we look at salmon, for example, salmon's also a source of omega-3 fats if they are fed kelp. Now, kelp is a magnificently nutritious food for salmon. Also, by the way, not too bad for us. if we eat seaweed, we can get a good source of iodine, selenium, a lot of the nutrients that we need to stay healthy for our thyroid gland and the rest of our health, etc. But the problem these days is you don't know at the store whether you're getting salmon that have been caught from the ocean or salmon that have been farmed. And some of those farmed salmon are actually genetically modified. They're called Frankenfish, like Frankenstein fish, and they're genetically modified. So you don't know whether you're getting that either a lot of times. You actually have to ask or read labels to find out what kind of fish you're getting. But those fish are fed corn, and guess what their omega-3 to omega-6 ratio is, or 6:3. It's around 20:1 again. So you feed salmon food that is not appropriate to salmon, namely it's not kelp, it's corn, and you get the same kind of fat profile or oil profile from those fish that you get from the fish that are, or the beef that are fed in the same way. It's the food they eat that gives them the ratio of fats and not just the kind of animal they are. Okay, so I want you to keep that in mind. Okay, now before we leave this, omega-3, omega-6 thing, we aren't going to leave it entirely, the show, but before we leave the kinds of foods you eat to get these, I want to say something about the omega-3s, because you can buy these things at the drugstore, at the grocery store, Walmart, Kmart, et cetera, all these different stores. You can buy, supplements for these. But I want you to know there's a huge difference in the quality of these, because the supply chain, if you can trace the supply chain back, you want as short amount of time from the harvesting of the fish from the ocean to the encapsulation or the making a little oil pill for your consumption as can be possible. Short time. The reason is because oils get rancid. And when you're buying oils like omega-3 oils, fish oils from the drugstore and these big chain stores, you have no guarantee that the supply chain is short. Also, if you're buying oils that come from salmon, salmon is a predator fish. Salmon actually has a mercury concentration that is far higher than other fishes. Salmon eat fish, and they eat fish that eat fish, and those fish eat fish that eat fish, all the way up the food chain. So the smaller the fish that you get the oil from, the better. Now, what that means is this. There's a concept called biointensification, and that biointensification goes like this. When that small fish, who has just a little bit of mercury in it, is eaten by a larger fish, and that larger fish eats lots of small fish that have a little bit of mercury, that mercury accumulates in the larger fish. And then when that huge salmon eats that fish and eats a whole bunch of other fish that size, the mercury in all of those fishes that have already been bioconcentrated becomes part of that salmon. And so after swimming the oceans all season and then being caught in nets and then being thrown in the bottom of the boat and sitting there, until the boat comes into the dock, and then et cetera, long time until the oil is actually pressed, you get the biointensification of mercury as well as the rancidification of the oils. The oils that we use at the Welcome to Health Center are done from anchovies, mackerels, and things like this, very small fish. So the biointensification is very, very small because most of those fish are eating plankton. And plankton is something that is the bottom of the food chain. It processes nutrients in the ocean. It produces oils. It then, as those oils are produced, then the fish eat those fish, and the amount of mercury is very, very low. Plus, the quality of the oil is very, very high. So, and by the way, we also know that our supply chain is very, very short. The other factor about the omega-3s, by the way, that you buy in the big chain stores is that the actual oil you get is very small. The milligrammage of those oils, they generally sell them in 1,000 milligram tablets, or oil, gelatin oil beads. But the problem is, if you look at the active ingredients, the actual omega-3 fats, The dosage is very, very small, in the less than 200 milligram range, whereas one of our tablets is smaller than theirs, but is up in the 1,000 milligram range. If you take all of the active ingredients of the omega-3s, it's usually over 1,000 milligrams, whereas they have a big tablet that has lots of oil in it, but the oils are filler oils, and then a small, very small dosage. So even though you're buying 1,000 milligram tablets, and they'll have it right on the label there, 1,000 milligrams, you're not getting the active ingredients. You're not getting the good oils that you would get from us. And ours actually, for the milligram dosage, end up being cheaper than theirs. So make sure you're getting the oils from a good, honest source that is not just trying to market you into buying their product, but who actually is trying to build your health. And we've said it before too, when you go into some of these drugstores, there's a big question as to whether they're really even interested in your health. They're usually interested in making sure you get sick so that you go to the back of the store and use their pharmaceutical drugs. And you know that. I mean, doesn't take a rocket scientist to, when you enter a store, you look over to the right and the whole wall behind the counter is cigarettes and tobacco products. You know that these people are not interested in your health. They're interested in selling you whatever you want to buy. So, find somebody. Welcome to Health Center has great supplements. We make sure that the supply chain is short on our omega-3s. Okay, just a couple other things. One of the things you want to know also is that some of the oils out there that are advertised as healthy oils aren't that healthy. One of them is canola oil. Canola oil is a genetically modified oil. It's modified rapeseed oil. That may give you some kind of clue. But it's genetically modified rapeseed oil, and it is processed so that it becomes less and less healthy. When it first comes out of the ground, or is harvested and pressed, it's not absolutely horrible. It's just horrible. But when it's processed so that it can be shipped for bottling and things like that, it's processed with heat. It's pasteurized, and as a pasteurized oil, it becomes a high level of trans fats. And you do not want trans fats. Trans fats do not fit well into the cell membranes of your cells. They actually stiffen the cell membranes so that it interrupts the use of integral proteins in the membranes and signaling molecules, etc. It's not a good oil. The better oil for cooking is coconut oil. Coconut oil is almost ideal. It's a saturated fat. That means that it does not transform into trans fats because it's got all of its hydrogen bonds filled. It's bonded to other carbon molecules in a tight bond, a single bond, and it's not going to transform into trans fats. So choose coconut oil or avocado oil to cook with. Olive oil is a great healthy oil, but you want to eat it raw. You don't want to use it to cook. You want to use it on your salad. You want to use it on that stuff, but don't use it as a cooking oil. Coconut oil is the oil of choice for cooking, and it adds a little sweetness too. It's wonderful. Also, it's an antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral oil, and so it's got many, many different functions. It's good on the skin too, good with the hair. It's used in most cosmetics because it's so good, okay? So do that. And we're going to come back with you next week and have another Welcome to Health, and well, good to see you again. Good to talk to you. Bye-bye.